Hey everybody, how's it going out there? Welcome to Movies and Music with AJ. My name's AJ. Thanks for watching. And today we're back with another album reaction. We're going to be listening to Jethro Tull and their 1971 classic album, AQUALUNG. And the reason I'm going with this album and this band, it's kind of funny because I just feel like September somehow accidentally turned into me listening to a lot of classic rock from the late 60s and early 70s, specifically the Bay Area, bands that were adjacent to the hippie subculture. I started with the Grateful Dead, then we did Santana, and then Janis Joplin. And I think it was after I reacted to Janis Joplin that I was thinking to myself, I bet all of these acts played at Woodstock. And so I looked it up, and sure enough, not only did they all play Woodstock, but they all played the same day. Well, I guess a better way to put it is the same 12-hour period, because I believe the Grateful Dead went on around 10 and got off stage shortly after midnight. And then Janis didn't go on stage until like 2 in the morning, which is just so crazy to think about. And I just feel like nowadays, if a music festival goes past midnight, like that's already considered so late. So the fact that, Woodstock was often going until sunrise the next day, that's just, I can't imagine being there. But yeah, anyway, I was thinking about Woodstock and like the fact that I, just happened to do these 3 bands that all played that festival. And then I thought, me just being me and being someone who loves contrast, loves a bit of good-natured roguishness, some playful rebellion. I thought, what? Instead of listening to a 4th band in a row that played Woodstock, let me find a band who turned down Woodstock and listen to them instead. And, thankfully, the Wikipedia entry for Woodstock actually has a list of bands that were, either scheduled to perform and had to pull out or were offered Woodstock and turned it down outright. And so I went down the list and I found Jethro Tull on there. And I thought that was actually kind of perfect because I'd already been planning on listening to Jethro Tull at some point on this channel because I'm a little bit of a prog nerd. 2 of my favorite all-time bands are King Crimson and Yes, but I just feel like beyond them, I haven't really branched out too much into 70s prog. So yeah, Jethro Tull had been a band that I'd been thinking about to react to on this channel. But what really solidified it for me was when I read the reason that they didn't play Woodstock. Yeah, Ian Anderson, the frontman for Jethro Tull, explained it in a Q&A with songfacts.com. You can find the link. It goes to a CBS News article, and it's linked in the footnotes of the Woodstock Wikipedia entry. But, I was going to try to paraphrase it, and I just thought, that would be nowhere near as entertaining. I would not say it as well as Ian Anderson says it himself, so I'm just going to go ahead and read you this quote. "The reason I don't want to play Woodstock is because I asked our manager, Terry Ellis, well, who else is going to be there? And he listed a large number of groups who were reputedly going to play, and that it was going to be a hippie festival. And I said, will there be lots of naked ladies? And will there be taking drugs and drinking lots of beer and fooling around in the mud? Because rain was forecast. And he said, oh yeah. So I said, right, I don't want to go. Because I don't like hippies. And I'm usually rather put off by naked ladies, unless the time is right. Well, indeed, unless the money's right." And I just thought, man, that is such a great answer. I mean, honestly, I can't say that I agree. I just think, half the fun of going to a music festival, especially in the late 60s, would have been to not be entirely sober. But still, I gotta say, I really respect and admire the fact that A, Ian Anderson is a man of principles, and that B, he's willing to stand by those principles, even turning down a paycheck and all the exposure that would have come with playing that festival, because he just knew himself. And I'm sure he knew what he wanted, but more importantly, he knew what he didn't want. And yeah, so that's such a funny answer. Like, he doesn't like hippies, and that was the hippie festival. So yeah, good for him for sticking to his guns, But yeah, it is just kind of funny because I actually do think of prog rock as sort of a response to and against, the hippie subculture and the hippie movement, in the same way that, it just seems like a lot of genres that emerge as a response to the previous genre, both musically and culturally. Like, I think of prog as sort of a response to the hippie movement, but then I think of the punk rock movement as a response to the prog rock movement. I think of the mods and the mod revival as just a response to everybody. So yeah, I feel like you do tend to see that in terms of the subcultures and the music genres themselves. They kind of form as reactions and reactions to reactions in terms of what they're about culturally and musically. And with that, we are listening to Jethro Tull and their album AQUALUNG. And yeah, Jethro Tull, I've been really interested in listening to their music for a while. Partly because what I do know about them is that they incorporate flute into their music. And, being a King Crimson fan, I am no stranger to flute and prog rock. That first album, the song I Talk to the Wind, such a great song, and it's basically written around the flute. So yeah, I'm excited to get into this band. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Without further ado, this is going to be my reaction to AQUALUNG by Jethro Tull from 1971. Let's go.
Sitting on the park bench, eyeing little girls with bad intent.
And they just launched right into it, didn't they?
Fingers smearing shabby clothes. Hey, AQUALUNG,
It's really great imagery.
feeling like a dead duck. Spitting out pieces of his broken love.
There's just so much going on in this verse lyrically that I'm just like trying to process it. But here we go. We're slowing down now. A little moment to breathe. They just came in with that heavy riff and didn't let up, Yeah, it's just a whole lot to process lyrically and musically all at once,
Feeling alone. The armies of the road. Salvation at the mood. And a cup of tea. Do you still remember the December's foggy freeze? When the ice that clings onto your bed was screaming agony. Hey, and you snatch your rattling last breaths with deep sea diver sounds. And the
Just like how it got so much more musically upbeat.
taking time the only way he knows.
This song has a real like medley feel to it.
AQUALUNG, my friend, don't you start away uneasy. You poor old sod, you see it's
It was way more upbeat and dancy than I thought it was gonna be. That's a nice just kind of like fade out. Okay, easing us into it. I feel like it's gonna pick up back here though in a second. Yeah, okay, there we go. Ooh. I'm loving the guitar solo, but what's really holding it down is that bass line. I'm really digging that bass line underneath it. That was an interesting little stutter there in the percussion. Nice. Very nice. This song has so many movements. That's such a good riff.
sitting on the park bench.
Like, it just feels like primordial. It feels like that's just good, like, proto hard rock. Like, I could see people listening to that riff back in 71 and really being inspired. Nice little drum fill there. Yeah, such a classic way to end a song. Whew. I mean, there's so much to process there. I try not to, criticize myself too much, especially in the moment, but I just feel like I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to focus on. Usually I can focus on the lyrics of a song, or there's some musical hook to a song that I can lock onto and have something to say. But that song just had so much going on. Musically, there's a lot of really cool and complex stuff going on that I was like trying to take in, but it's hard to focus on the music when the lyrics were what they were. I'm guessing that, I don't know if this whole album's a concept album, but definitely that song, had a concept to it. It was telling a story. And also just based on the cover art, it's this, what looks like a homeless man, not in the best of shape. He looks like he's probably seen better days. And then when I'm listening to the lyrics of that first verse, I'm pretty sure it's describing who we're seeing on the album cover. I mean, I guess this guy is AQUALUNG. You know, I was wondering what that was, an AQUALUNG. I've never heard that phrase before other than associated with this album. I do know an Iron Lung. The Iron Lung ain't got to tell you where it's coming from. Wu-Tang. But yeah, just looking at these lyrics I have them pulled up now. Sitting on a park bench, eyeing little girls with bad intent. So yeah, obviously this guy's a child predator. But then you look at the description of him. Snot running down his nose, greasy fingers smearing shabby clothes. First of all, great line. But also just, you know, musically, you know, it has a nice musicality to it. But also just the imagery of it is just so vivid. Like, I can see this guy based on that description. I can also probably smell the guy based off that description. You know, that's just, it's, yeah, strong lyrics, but, you know, also lyrics that are not shying away from controversial subjects. But yeah, I'm curious to see if this is a one-off track or if this is actually going to be the story of the entire album following the story of this man, AQUALUNG. Curious to find out. So yeah, let's keep it going with track 2, Cross-Eyed Mary. Ooh, it's a very different sound. But there's that flute though. Oh, I love this percussion. Has this like thumping tribal vibe to it. We're building up to something. But what's it gonna be? I feel like it's all gonna just come crashing in. We're gonna get something big. Is that the guitar or the bass? That it's really heavy, fuzzy riff.
She signs no contract, but she always plays the game. She dives in Hampstead Village on expense accounting rule, and the jackknife barber.
Such a rough, raspy voice, which suits the character they're singing about.
Or maybe her attention is drawn by AQUALUNG.
There he is again. Yeah, I'm guessing this is a story throughout the entire album.
Cross-eyed Mary finds it hard to get along. She's a poor man's rich girl. Then she'll do it for a song. Let the poor man get along.
That little piano. Loving these call and response solos.
Rather make it with electric rain.
Yeah, I listened to this and I can definitely see the through line to like grunge and early 90s alternative rock.
She dives in Hampstead Village.
Love that little like, let's take it up one notch. Let's just come in a little harder for this next part of the verse. Woo. Yeah, some more of that call and response between the flute and the guitar. Love it. That's clean.
On present platform, do your soft shoe shuffle dance.
It was a very different vibe. Felt like a good place for a ballad type of track though, just to bring it down a little bit after a couple of pretty relentless tracks to start off the album.
She made you tea, asked for your autograph. What a laugh.
Short and sweet.
As I did walk by Hampstead Fair, I came upon Mother Goose. So I turned her loose as she was screaming.
Is that sort of like a medieval feel to it? The flute definitely helps accentuate that.
Saw at least 100 schoolgirls sobbing into handkerchiefs as one. I was a schoolboy.
Ooh, why do I feel like this might be sung from the perspective of AQUALUNG, but as a young man, as a schoolboy?
With his long red beard and his sister's witch, she drives a lorry. Left down by the button green, I popped him in there.
That was a nice change-up.
I don't believe they knew that I was Long John Silver.
What type of song is this? Like, I feel like there's a name for this kind of song. Sort of a folky, Renaissance fairish type of quality to it, you know what I mean?
In his jet's black Mac, which he won't give back, stole it from a snowman.
Ooh. Yeah, it's nice how they're adding that guitar as we get later into these verses. Just add a little bit of a heavier sound to it.
I don't believe they knew I was a schoolboy.
Nice. Yeah, these lyrics are starting to become a little bit impenetrable for me. They seem straightforward enough, but my thinking is that they're part of a bigger narrative and a story that's being told about this AQUALUNG character. And my theory is that this song is being sung from his perspective, but as a young boy. But yeah, it's just like this line of, I came upon Mother Goose screaming, so I turned her loose. That could mean all kinds of things. Like, is it a literal goose? Or, you know, is it a woman that he met? He also happens upon a scene of 100 schoolgirls all sobbing into their handkerchiefs. It's like, what's that about? I do like this line about the Piccadilly Circus and a student asking, are there really elephants and lions there? I know just enough about the UK and about London to know that Piccadilly Circus is not an actual circus. So that's just a fun little kind of wordplay, or just kind of fun little joke to have in there. Yeah, and I feel like progressive rock especially is a genre where you need to listen to a song or an album multiple times before you start to even get anywhere near a complete picture. It's definitely, you know, a bit of a high wire act trying to do a first time reaction to a prog rock album.
Wond'ring aloud how we feel today.
Okay, sounds like we're keeping it going with that ballad energy.
My hand in her hair. We are our own saviors as we start, both our hearts beating live.
I love that. We are our own saviors.
As she floats in the kitchen, I'm tasting the smell. Yeah.
That's maybe the second time that he's sung a line and then kind of chuckled afterwards. It's just a nice touch.
Toast as the butter runs, then she comes spilling crumbs on the bed.
Loving the strings on this. Just adds a whole another lush layer of richness to it.
And it's only the giving that makes you
Oof.
what you are.
Yeah, that's a strong line, but also the way it came in and the way he sung it was just chef's kiss. Yeah, for such a short song, there are some really strong, memorable lines in it, though. It's only the giving that makes you what you are. I mean, isn't that the truth? Especially, you know, in terms of relationships. I feel like, you know, sometimes people struggle with relationships because they're not going into them with the right mindset. I've been married for a couple years now, and my wife and I, we were dating for a few years before we got married. So I just think about our happiest memories, or at least my happiest memories in the relationship. And often it's when I'm able to give her joy and make her laugh, or make her feel appreciated or special. Those are some of the best memories I have. It's not thinking about, well, what's she done for me? What has she given me? It's really like, what have we done for each other? Making each other laugh, and just doing nice, kind things. Unprompted, unasked for, just something that shows you're really thinking about the other person. Yeah, I feel like it's a really underrated part of being in a relationship, and it's captured so well in that line. It's the giving that makes you what you are. And you can look at that line in another way too, which is if you're only ever giving negativity in a relationship, then that's what the relationship is going to be. So, you can either be giving good energy, or you could just be giving, shit energy. There's a lot of laughing on this album. This song has a much more sloppy, loose sort of feel to it, but intentionally so. Definitely a little chaotic.
Make the scene at Cousin Jack's, leave him to put the bottles back. Mends his glasses that are cracked, well that's one up to me. Hey. I buy a silver cloud to ride, pack the tennis club inside, trouser cuffs hung far too wide, well it was up to me.
Ha! Ooh. They teased you with that electric guitar. Yeah.
Well, I'm a
leaves it at that.
working man, with a half of bitter bread and jam. When the copper fades away, oh, it's up to me.
Yeah, I just love the loose, whimsical feel of the song. Just a little bit of tambourine there on the left channel. Oh, that ended abruptly. Alright, where are we going? This feels like it's gonna be a journey.
People, what have you done? Locked him in his golden cage, made him bend to your religion, him resurrected from the grave. Is the God of nothing, if that's all that you can see. You are the God of everything, He's inside you and me.
I can't quite yet tell if these lyrics are pro-organized religion or anti-organized religion. It's kind of vague. That first verse sounds like it was about Jesus. You made him bend to your religion, resurrected from the grave, but then he's the God of nothing, if that's all you can see. Interesting.
The bloody Church of England in chains of history.
I'm guessing it's at least anti-at-least one organized religion.
Requests your earthly presence at the vicarage for tea.
Whew, that's some funky flute. That has to have been my favorite moment on this album so far. Still don't know if this is pro or anti-religion, but this song is heavenly. I will say that. Nice. It's still going.
You'll be praying till next Thursday to all the goth that you can count.
Look, nothing against the guitar solos on this album. There've been some good ones. They've kept my attention. But man, when the flute comes in, my just hype level goes up so much that, I think what I was able to piece together lyrically, I kept asking, is this song pro-organized religion or anti-organized religion? And I think by the time I got to the end of it, I think really what it is, it's anti the way people misuse religion or misrepresent religion, or use it as some sort of tool or crutch, for their own selfish personal reasons. These last couple verses, to me, it paints a portrait of somebody who is, basically somebody who's just going to keep sinning and has no intention of stopping, but they're using confession as just a sort of workaround. It's almost like the spiritual version of just running up debt on a credit card. It's just like, I'll just keep committing all these sins and I can just confess them, and that just lets me keep on committing more sins. It says here, you'll be praying till next Thursday to all the gods you can count. Yeah, that's like somebody basically, like I was saying, that metaphor of running up credit card debt. This is somebody who's taking out like 4 or 5 credit cards in their name and is just running up the debt on all of them. But they're doing it in the spiritual sense of like, yeah, just praying to every god they can think of to absolve these sins so they can just keep on sinning.
Up Father high in heaven, smile down upon your son. Yeah.
This one's a lot more bluesy, especially on that vocal delivery. Woo, that piano. Yeah, I guess I didn't know what to expect from this band musically, because prog rock can honestly come from a lot of different places musically. It's not one unified sound, but this is definitely more on the hard rock side of things.
If Jesus saves, well, it better save himself. From the gory seekers, we use his name in death. Ow!
Yeah, I think that goes to what I was just saying about the previous song. Yeah, it's an interesting tack to take in terms of a view on religion, where you're not really talking about religion itself, but more the ways people use religion, especially hypocritically. Yeah, like it's almost a defense of religion while also criticizing religion at the same time.
His cross was rather bloody. Oh, and they could hardly roll his stone. And Jesus saved me.
Some good drum fill.
Well, the lies, separation, enfolds you, and the products of wealth push you along on the bow wave of their spiritless undying selves, and you press on God's way to your last dime as he hands you the bill, and you're spinning slipstream, tideless, unreasoning, paddle right out of the maze, and you paddle right out of the maze.
Underrated part of this album for me so far is the strings. Ooh. Love how just warped and sort of creepy that vibe is.
In the shuffling madness of the locomotive breath runs the all-time loser, headlong to his death. Old Charlie stole the handle.
Ooh, I love how that came in.
And one stop, oh, and no, it could slow down. Old Charlie stole the handle.
Yeah, I love how that comes in every time. Ooh, I was feeling like it'd been a minute since we got a flute solo. So heavy.
Thank God it stole the handle, and the train in one stop, oh, and no, it could slow down. Oh, it could slow down.
It's funny, I just listened to the Grateful Dead and they had a song, Casey Jones, about the train conductor who is high on cocaine and loses control of the train. And this felt like I was telling a similar story there for a second. Alright, final track is called Wind Up. Will I wind up liking this album overall? Let's find out.
And I asked this God a question, and by way of firm reply, he said, I'm not the kind you have to wind up on Sundays. How'd you dare to tell me that I'm a father's son? As you lick the boots of death, born out of fear.
And musically, that feels like it could be a precursor to, you know, power pop or pop punk. It just really upbeat, crunchy, but really catchy.
And taught me how not to play the game.
Ah, such a good riff.
The half-assed smile and the book of rules. Where you connect, communicate me on my way to Sunday school. Have all the bishops harmonize these lines.
Nice. Just got chills.
So to my old headmaster and to anyone who cares, before before I'm through, I'd like to say my prayers. Well, you can excommunicate me on my way to Sunday school, and have all the bishops harmonize these lines. I don't believe you. You had the whole damn thing all wrong.
Wow.
He's not the kind you have to wind up on Sunday.
It's a strong ending, lyrically, musically too, but that last line, those last couple lines, I think that pretty much punctuates and answers the question I was having throughout the back half of this album as to whether this album is pro-religion or anti-religion. You know, I'm pretty sure that's just kind of the wrong way to look at it. Alright, so I really enjoyed that album. Musically, there was a lot of fun stuff going on, a lot of good ideas. You know, I really enjoyed those heavy riffs, you know, those bluesy sort of proto-hard rock guitar riffs. But obviously for me, it was all about the flute. Those flute solos were the highlight of this album for me in terms of the music. Yeah, man, he went off. Ian Anderson, yeah, his versatility with the flute. He was shredding on the flute, which is not a sentence I woke up this morning expecting to say. But also, yeah, there were some flute moments that were also just really funky. He could really just do a lot with that instrument. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that aspect of the music. But yeah, let's talk about the lyrics, because that seems to be the real meat of this album. And I'm kind of torn, honestly, because, you know, I ended up liking the direction that the album took, but it kind of felt like two different albums. You know, this was a tale of two different albums. It started off, you know, with the title track Aqualung, and which seemed to be about this character whose name was Aqualung, who by the description, you know, was this homeless man. And, you know, that opening track does a good job of describing him and the kind of person he is. Apparently not a very good one. And then he gets referenced in, I believe it's the following track, or maybe two tracks later, you know, that character gets referenced again. But yeah, it seemed to be building this narrative around this character. But then at a certain point, it seems like the album took a hard turn, lyrically anyway, and the songs all became about religion. And, you know, at first it was vague enough to where I couldn't quite tell if this was taking a pro-religion stance or an anti-religion stance. And then I realized at a certain point that that was the wrong question to be asking. It was more about hypocrisy. It was more about how people use religion. And it's an interesting point of view to come from, because I felt like these songs were criticizing people and the way they use religion or misuse religion, but it wasn't necessarily critiquing religion itself as an idea. It was more the idea that people will use this thing as a veil to hide behind. They'll use it as a tool for selfish means, that they'll live hypocritically. They won't live by the actual teachings of the religion. They'll just use the religion as a way to get away with living immorally or unethically. But then again, he could be also making the point that the two are so intertwined that, you know, that the hypocrisy is baked into the thing itself, that, you know, you can't extricate them. And if that's the point he's making, then yeah, in a roundabout way, that is a criticism of religion itself. But I don't know that there was enough there to say that that's where he was coming from. Although I will say that the closing track, Wind Up, did come pretty close, I feel like, to basically making that point. I mean, just listen to the closing lines from the album. I don't believe you. You had the whole damn thing all wrong. He's not the kind you have to wind up on Sundays. So yeah, really driving home the point of people using God or using religion as a tool. You know, it's a tool that you wind up just for your own selfish uses. So I guess my overall end of the day assessment is that this music is being sung from the perspective of somebody who does believe in a God and has some spirituality in their life, but it's the way that religion and God has been appropriated, you know, on an organized level, that this person takes issue with, and because they see the hypocrisy of the way people use it. So yeah, if that is the case, that is a really interesting perspective to take on religion. I feel a lot of people, you know, once they make that realization or that connection of, hey, a lot of people are basically full of shit when it comes to what they proclaim about religion or being religious. I feel like once people make that realization that the hypocrisy is there, they just throw it all away, right? That, you know, people become atheists. And I've gone through different points of my life where, I've considered myself an atheist, times when I've considered myself agnostic. And now I just kind of don't think about it. That might sound like anti-intellectual or an uneducated thing to say. But where I'm coming from is I've really tried to pare down my life and really streamline my life and kind of live in a really stoic way where I look at things and I say, how does this make me a better version of me? And if there's no answer for that, then I just discard with it on a personal level. I understand that religion does help some people. I understand that some people it can be harmful. But for me, I just, at the end of the day, I stopped being religious very early in life. I was raised Catholic. My family went to Catholic church when I was a kid. I did catechism when I was I think in third grade maybe. But then I just remember towards late elementary, maybe early middle school around there, my other classmates and friends who are also Catholic started working towards what's called confirmation in the Catholic Church. It's one of the sacraments. And I just remember by that point, 10, 11 years old, I had kind of just personally discarded with religion at that point. I think all my experiences with religious classes and, the teachings, and it's kind of the same thing that this guy's describing of looking around and realizing, hey, the people that I'm surrounded by who claim to be religious don't seem to be living by these tenets. They seem to be living pretty hypocritically. And so I think I just, kind of where this guy's coming from, I kind of just discarded it. But it just kind of happened naturally, just like a skin that you shed. It wasn't a distinct choice, I don't think. But anyway, to get back to a point I started to make at some point and kind of got self-derailed there. Yeah, I've gone through different periods of my life in terms of how much I defined or didn't define what my belief structure is. And I feel like labels are more helpful for food and cleaning products. But in terms of people, I just feel like labels, at the end of the day, we're all just human beings trying to make it. And what you call yourself or what you believe, people want to fit everything into a nice, neat box. And sometimes stuff doesn't fit into a nice, neat box. And that would include my spiritual and or religious beliefs. I just feel like there's not really a word for what I am. I'm just somebody who believes in just being a good person and doing your best and, having grace and having forgiveness and just, everyone's trying to pay their bills. Everyone's trying to make it through the day. We sometimes catch people when they're their worst selves. We sometimes catch people when they're being their best selves. And you just have to know that for most people, there's not one clear portrait of who they are. It's all very messy. So I find it's most helpful to just avoid hard judgments for most people. Obviously, some people commit atrocities, are terrible people, or at the very least do very terrible things that are not very forgivable. But I feel like those are the outliers. Those are not the people you're going to be interacting with on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, I try to avoid defining what I believe too rigidly, because I think of all the hours I spent in church as a little kid, and I don't know that I ever felt a spiritual feeling in that environment. But I tell you what, if I stand on a beach and just stare out into the ocean, that is such a spiritual, religious experience for me. Just how small it makes me feel and just how vast it all is. Stuff like that, staring out into the night sky at the stars when you're out in a rural area. I mean, that stuff to me is way more spiritual and, perspective altering and mind altering, than, sitting in a room with other people praying. And again, I'm just talking for me. I'm not criticizing anyone else's beliefs or choices or how they express that. I'm just saying for me personally, I do have moments that I can describe as spiritual, but they're not conventional in the religious or organized religion sense of the word. So it wouldn't be accurate to call myself an atheist or even an agnostic. I just accept that there are things I'm never going to have the answer for, and some things just aren't worth debating. If I can't prove something is or isn't real, and you can't prove it either, why are we going to debate about it? It's just not a constructive use of my time. Yeah, that was all very long-winded, and I hope that made sense. But yeah, this is such a fascinating album and a perspective. But like I said, I am kind of torn because I would love to know the connection between spending the first half of the album talking about this character whose name is AQUALUNG, and then kind of ditching his story and then talking about religion, for the back half of the album. Interesting choice. Anyway, I think that's a good place to leave it for today. Said a lot. Hope some of it made sense. But yeah, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you want to follow along with more of my album reactions, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Signing out for today, this has been Movies and Music with AJ. My name's AJ. Thanks for watching and have a good day.